Hey coders, and welcome to episode 1 of our App Engine playlist on the Google Cloud Platform course. In this episode, we're going to be deploying a Node.js application to the internet. So the top 3 topics which I have picked out for today are downloading the gcloud SDK, app.yaml, and finally the command gcloud app deploy. But before we dive into a live demonstration, I just want to give a humongous shout out to one of my subscribers, MD Amir Hussain. Amir was the first ever patron of this channel's Patreon page, and I'm extremely grateful and thankful for his generosity, love, and support. So Amir, thank you so much. You are the man. Now, if you're also interested, like Amir, in contributing to this channel's growth and success, and getting shoutouts and videos, planning future video topics, and even getting one-on-one live consultations with me where we go over your projects and code, then please consider contributing to the Patreon page in the description. The link is in the description. Also, I just want to give a quick update on our microphone fundraiser. We have raised $36 so far, which means we're only $102 away from getting that microphone on this channel. So I'm extremely optimistic that we can all do that together and bring that microphone on this channel. Now with that said, let's jump on over to the Google Cloud console and deploy that Node.js application. This is the screen in which we left off with in the last episode. We had just created our App Engine application, and then we were presented with this button to get started. So now let's actually get started. So we'll click that button, and then this is the screen that we have. It says this step is optional, but we'll just do it anyways just to get a better experience. We're actually going to be deploying a Node.js application, so let's select this, Node.js, and then you have 2 options for your environment, flexible or standard, but let's just go with standard right now. That is a little bit easier to manage. So we'll click on next, and then we'll get this prompt right here. We'll get some resources, some documentation if we want to read that, and we'll also get a prompt to deploy the Google Cloud SDK. So the Google Cloud SDK is your way of interacting with Google Cloud from your own personal laptop's terminal. And that becomes extremely helpful a lot of times, and quite often it is the only way to interact with Google Cloud when you're doing certain functions. So this is how you'll interact. You'll push your code up into App Engine from your own personal laptop's terminal using the Google Cloud SDK. So let's follow these steps right here. It says download the Cloud SDK. So we'll click on this button right here. And then that will redirect us to this page where you can read a little bit more about the Cloud SDK. And then we can click on Get Started. And then once we click on that link, then we'll see how to download the Google Cloud SDK. It says, getting started with Cloud SDK, installing the latest Cloud SDK version, 329. So there are a lot of different operating systems which you may be working on in your own laptop. We have Linux, Debian, Red Hat, Mac OS, or Windows. So I actually am working on a Macintosh right now. So this is the procedure I'm going to be following for this video. If you have Windows, I actually think it's a slightly bit easier. You'll have this screen right here, this installer, and all you'll need to do is click a few buttons. But since I'm on Mac OS, I'll have to do things through the terminal. So in order to download the Cloud SDK and use it, you need to have Python installed on your laptop. Most of the times, as it says right here, modern versions of Mac OS will include the appropriate version of Python, so it'll be pre-installed. But just to check, you can actually copy this code right here, open a terminal, and then check to see if you have Python installed and which version of Python you have installed. So I'm going to now paste that command, run it, and it says I have Python 2.7.13. If you want to check for a Python 3 version, you can say Python 3 and use the same V tag right there. And it says I have Python 3 installed on this laptop right here. And all you need to do is have Python 3 or Python 2, these versions or higher. So I have that requirement satisfied. Now let's go to the next step. So next step says download one of the following. So you need to determine if you have a 64-bit or a 32-bit platform on your Macintosh. So most of the time, again, it's going to be 64-bit. If you don't know, I would go with 64-bit, but if you want to double check, you can run this command from your terminal again, and then that will give you how many bits you have on your platform. So I have a 64-bit Mac OS, and I believe most of you also will have that as well. So what I'm going to do now is download this package. This is the archive or the gzip of the Google Cloud SDK package. So let me just click on that. And while that is downloading, it says we're going to need to now unarchive the gzip file, and then we're going to need to put that in our home directory. So after that has been downloaded, it looks like it has, then we're going to open up our Finder, go to our home directory, and then just drag this, oops, we need to now minimize this right here, drag this into our home directory. Just like that. So now it's in our home directory. Let's unarchive it by clicking on it. There we go, it's expanding it. And it might take a little bit of time. It's 100 megabytes right here, the archived version. So now we have the Google Cloud SDK on our home directory right here. So let's see what to do next. It says we've done that, and we have done that. So now we need to run this script from our home directory. By the way, you don't actually need to have this in your home directory. That's just where I'm going to keep it. If you have, say, a development directory right here, you can place it in there. It's not going to matter, but I'm just going to follow the instructions on this documentation and put it in my home directory. Also, I'm going to delete that. I don't need that anymore. Alright, so now I have the Google Cloud SDK in my home directory. Let me go open up this terminal again and follow the next instructions. So it says run this script. You really just need to run this install script, which is right here, somewhere right here. Yep, right there. So you just need to install, or you need to run that script, and it says you can run it using this code right here. So I'm just going to paste that and run it from my home directory. And there we go. It says welcome now to Google Cloud SDK, and you have some prompts. It says, do you want to help improve Google Cloud SDK? Yes, I do. So I'm going to report some anonymized data usage. It says, now, do you want to modify to update your path to enable shell command completion? And yes, I want to do this because this will allow me to run the gcloud command from anywhere in my directory tree. So it doesn't have to always be in a certain path. This way, if I say yes to this, I will be able to access the gcloud from anywhere on my laptop. So I'm going to say yes, and then I'm just going to hit enter, and there we go. So now I have installed the gcloud SDK on my laptop. But we have to do one more thing, and that is to initialize it. So now I'm going to copy this code right here. This is our init right here. We're going to initialize gcloud, and that way we will be able to, as it says right here, it says you must log in to continue. Would you like to log in? So yes, I'm going to now log in to my Google Cloud, to my Google account, so it knows which Google account to push the code to. So I'm going to say yes, and here we go. It says sign on. I'm going to use this account right here, David the Weiss 7. It says Google Cloud SDK wants to access your Google account. Again, we get this. This looks very familiar if you've seen any of my app script videos. And it says here's some things right here. View and manage Google Compute Engine, stuff like that. App Engine. I'm going to hit allow. And there we go. If you get this screen, then now we are authenticated with the Google Cloud SDK. And you can read a little bit more on this, but I'm actually going to exit out of there. So now if we go back here, it says now pick the cloud project that we want to use. I'm going to use Axial Theater. I'm going to hit 1. There we go. It says, do you want to configure a default compute region and zone? I'll say no for now. And there we go. So it has all of this some text that you can read, but now we are good to go, and we can run Google Cloud or the gcloud command now from anywhere in our laptop. So that has been completed. We have finally downloaded and installed the gcloud, the Google Cloud SDK. So you only have to do that once. After you've done that once, then you can just go on and make projects and deploy your awesome projects to Google Cloud. But after that, we can now make our Node.js application. So I'm going to minimize this and then make a Node.js application real quick. So I don't have a Node.js made right now, so I'm going to do that very quickly and simply. I'm going to make a simple Node.js application. I'm going to create a new folder. This one will be called David Weiss Programming. All right, and then I'm going to use my favorite code editor, which is Visual Studio Code. Drag this directory in here. And then I'm going to now open a new terminal. So here is the terminal. I have to create a Node.js application. So this isn't going to be a Node tutorial. So I'm going to do this very quickly and speed code it. But if you have any questions on Node, then feel free to comment them down below. So I'm just going to say npm init to create my Node application. Yes, that's the package name. Version, description, we'll say learn Google Cloud and app script with David. Entry point. So Google Cloud actually, our App Engine will look for your server-side file name of server.js. So that's the default. Your entry point will be server.js. Right now, the default on this Node application is index.js. You can keep it as index.js, but you'll have to notify in your configuration file that this index.js is the name of your server-side function. If you just want to go with server.js and not have to worry about any additional configuration, you can just type in server.js, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Test command, we don't need that right now. We don't have a Git repository. Keywords, I'll just leave that blank. Author, I'll say David Weiss. License, that's fine. You can change all of this later down the road. That's totally fine, but I'm just going to say, yes, this is okay for now. So we have just created or initialized a Node application, and as you can see here is our package.json. So now let's actually create our website. So I'm going to now create a folder. I'm going to say views, and in that folder I'm going to say index.html. Here we go. I'm just going to make a simple document that says this web page has been deployed to your local server. All right, I'm going to save that. And now, so we have our front end code, but we need our back end code, right? We need our server side code. We have our client side code. We now need our server side code to run this HTML. So I'm going to do that right now. And here we go. I'm going to say server.js. Again, remember that is our entry point, server.js. So this is going to be our server-side code. So I'm just going to quickly do some things. I'm actually going to use Express as our web framework. So I'm going to say npm install Express. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but as we can see, Express has now been added to our dependencies list. Let's go back into our server and say const express equals require express. I also want to say const path equals require path. We're also going to be needing that. And then now we're finally going to make our app. So it says app, const app equals express. We'll initialize this. And then we'll make our very first route. We'll say app.get, just our default routes are /, and then as a callback, we'll say request response. Here's our callback function. All we're going to do is say response dot send file, and then we're going to use now path dot join our directory name plus views views/index.html. So because this is where our HTML file is located, it's located views/index.html. So there we go right there. And then we need to now listen for our app. So we need to have a port. We're going to be listening for a port. So let me actually just declare that right here. I'll say const port equals process.env environment.port or 8080. So this means that we will take on App Engine's port if it's deployed to App Engine, but if we're just developing locally and we want to serve our application locally, then we're going to use this port right here, 8080. So we'll say app.now-listen. We're going to listen to that port number. And then as a callback function, let's just do something simple, such as console.log, and then we'll say app deployed at port, and then we'll say port. Oops. All right, so that is basically all that we need for our server-side code, and that is only 13 lines of code on the server side and only 12 lines of code on the client side. So that is pretty dang cool. So now that we have all of that, let's go see if this is working in our local development server. So the way we do that is we say node, and then we type in our server-side code, or our server-side file name. We'll say node server.js, and if we hit this, if we hit the enter key, it says app deployed at port 8080. So let's go check that out. We'll go over to our local host, and then we'll say port 8080. And if we now go here, it says there we go. This web page has been deployed to your local server. So we can see that everything is working correctly on our own local server. So that's good. That's always good to test before you deploy to the App Engine. But now that it's working, everything is working correctly, let's actually deploy this to the actual App Engine and deploy it to the actual internet. So if we exit out of that, we cancel the server, we shut it down, and we try to actually deploy our application to App Engine, and we use this function gcloud app deploy, and we say enter. This isn't actually going to work. As we can see, it says an app.yaml file is required to deploy this directory as an App Engine application. So that is something that you actually need in order to push this code to App Engine. You need a configuration file which is titled app.yaml. There's a lot more configuration files that you can add on to your application, but you need at least an app.yaml file. So let's go research what an app.yaml file is. Here it is right here. It says you configure your App Engine's app settings in the app.yaml file. The app.yaml file also contains information about your app's code, your node.js runtime, and environment variables. So you can add a lot of different things to your app.yaml file, but all that you need actually is it says for node.js, the app.yaml is required to contain at least a runtime entry or another supported version. So all you need is actually, you just need this line right here, what your runtime is. So first off, let's create an app.yaml file like it requests us to do. We'll say app.yaml in our main root directory of this project. And then we need a runtime. And remember, YAML is a markup. It says yet another markup language. So it's just a markup language. So all you need to do is just type in some text right here. And then to check, actually, to see what version of Node you have installed, you can say Node version, Node version, and it says I have version 10.13.3 installed. So I actually have the Node.js 10 runtime. So that's what I'm going to that's what I'm going to write right here. So it says runtime Node.js 10, and that's actually all that I need. That's all that's required for right now for my app.yaml file. I just need to specify which runtime I'm using. And again, based on this code right here, node double dash version, it says that I have version 10 installed. So let's go back now to our server, and it looks like everything and nothing has changed here. So let's try that gcloud deploy one more time. Gcloud app deploy. So now it says here's some metadata right here. It says, do you want to continue? I'll say yes. So it's uploading files to Google Cloud Storage. This may take some time, so I may speed this up right now. Alright, so we get this error initially, and I forgot we actually need to create a new terminal. We need to exit out of there and create a new terminal, and then rerun that that command. It says Google Cloud app deploy. Yes, we'll continue again, and then we'll wait again for this to run. I'm going to speed this up right now. Alright, and just like that, we have just deployed this application to Google Cloud. It's now on the internet, so let's go check out our brand new application, our brand new website on the internet. So it says deployed service to this URL right here. We can either say gcloud app browse, or we can just copy this URL right there. Copy it. I'm going to then paste that into the URL right here. And if we wait a little bit, there we go. It says this web page has been deployed to your local server. This is actually the internet now. So here is the website. Anybody can access this this application from this website, and that is pretty dang cool. In a later episode, I'll tell you how to actually change this to a custom domain, a custom URL. But for now, this is the default. It says Axial Theater and then all these numbers at appspot.com. So that is how to create and deploy a Node.js application to the internet. There's one more thing I want to cover before I close out this video though, and that is if you have a different name right here on your server side JavaScript. So right now, again, this works, right? And if we now go back, I'm actually going to change this to say has been deployed to the internet. All right, so again, this is the default server.js, but you can actually, if you decide to rename your server-side file to something like index, and let me just show you what that does if you try to run it right now. We'll redeploy, we'll say gcloud app deploy. And then again, I'll speed this up. Okay, so we have just now deployed our new application. However, our server-side file it's called index.js. So let's see what actually happens if we name it index.js. I'm going to refresh this page, and we see we get a server error. If we go check out that error in the console, it will tell us that they couldn't find a file called server.js. So we can either, again, rename this to server.js, or if you want to keep it as index.js, you need to go to your package.json and then just specify a startup script. Here we go, we'll say start, and then we'll say node index.js. And that's all you need to just say when you start up the script. We're basically going to override you saying node server.js, and we now want to specify that when you start up the script, we want you to say node index.js. Alright, so now let's redeploy that one more time. We'll say gcloud app deploy. Say yes, and then I'll speed this up. And there we go, now it is redeployed for a third time. We have specified node index.js as our startup script. So let's go back and see if that worked. If we hit the refresh button, there we go. Now everything is working again. So it says this web page has been deployed to the internet, and we are using it with index.js as our server-side backend code. Alright guys, I hope you really enjoyed this episode and learned something from it. If you did, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the very next episode.